As a millennial dealing with high levels of anxiety due to student debt and career pressures, what are some practical steps I can take to manage my mental health more effectively? I am a baby boomer struggling with purpose after retiring and feeling lost and depressed. What can I do? How can I, as a millennial or a parent, encourage either my son and daughter or my baby boomer parents to seek mental health support without making them feeling uncomfortable or stigmatized? If any of these statements resonates, this podcast is for you. Hi, my name is Bernie from Tiger Resilience, and I specialize in behavioral health and personal development.
And my name is Michael Tiger, and I specialize in physical health and personal development.
This is Tiger Resilience Podcast, where reaching human potential becomes a lifestyle. And we are here to help you. So if any of those topics resonate with you, this podcast is for you, because we are going to be discussing mental health. And what does mental health really mean? Mental well-being. But we're going to take it from two perspectives, one from the 30-something generation and one from the 50-something generation, from both myself and my son, Michael. And we're going to take it from those perspectives, share on some of the challenges that we both have, but in addition to that, some solutions that we both can do individually in our groups, but also how we can work together collectively and how we can help each other. So if you have any challenges in your life right now and you're just not feeling like you're just not feeling right, and you want to try and figure out how can I improve myself, my overall well-being, then that's generally probably tied to mental health. And again, then this show will be for you. Again, friend, welcome to our podcast series. We're so glad you took time out of your busy schedule to join us. And I'm going to get busy right into this. So Mike, this was a great topic, and this is something that Michael put together in regards to setting us up for today's show. And it's really an important and powerful discussion, mental health, because we're going to be discussing that in this week. And then over the next few shows, we're going to also discuss physical health, emotional health, and spiritual and conscience health. And we'll be discussing those in future shows going forward. But Mike, why don't you share some ideas and some challenges, specifically challenges that you're dealing with right now in your age group, the 30-something age group that is very specific to your lifestyle and again, to your age group.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for, having me, allowing me to talk about this and, create, a little outline that I felt was appropriate for, my ability to, discuss, mental health, as I'm not an expert, but it is something that in recent years I've taken a more keen interest in my own personal development, and also trying to help others close to me as much as I can. So just going into the challenges of, the age 30 group, this also can apply to Gen Z, but, predominantly the Gen Z millennial age group. A lot of the, kind of pervasive things are generally around, economic instability, debts, student debt, personal debts, career development, achieving these kind of major life milestones as it pertains to buying a house, marriage, kids, things that you just feel like you need to fulfill at a certain age in order to, feel like you're adequate or, you're completing, your life's journey in a fulfilling way. So, yeah, I think these stressors are often things that we kind of talk about or think about in this age group, and it's definitely things that I've really thought about and are constantly resonating in my mind. So I'm sure it can be something that can also be daunting to peers of mine as well. So yeah, I mean, in the kind of whole scope of this age group too, when we talk about the differences just between say the millennial generation and the baby boomers, oftentimes we're talking about mental health counseling being less of a stigma with the younger generation. As it pertains to myself personally, I historically have had actually that stigma with mental health and kind of like the reluctance to consider counseling. I think even though it is something that's a little more accepting in our age group, for me personally, I had a major hesitation and reservation to consider it. I felt like it kind of made me lesser than or weak to want to even engage in that, even if I didn't, I think for me, it was oftentimes like my trauma or things that I'm experiencing aren't significant enough to even warrant counseling. And so oftentimes it was something where I was like, yeah, I'm not going to ever engage in that. That's not for me. Like, that's for people that like are really kind of, having life challenges that are beyond, just like simple ones that I felt maybe I was experiencing. And then, kind of as the years progressed, especially in my late 20s and then hitting that age 30 threshold, I really started to realize that there was things I did need to talk about, and that, mental health counseling was something that maybe I should consider. And at age 30 is when I, finally, took the leap and jumped into working with a mental health counselor via my work, which is obviously a great resource to have depending on your place of work. And, with that, it's just something that has made me even more kind of interested in the whole idea of mental health and just the development of that, especially again as it pertains specifically to my age group, and anyone that's experiencing challenges which are going to be unique to, of course, to their own lives. So it might be something where, sure, we all have these milestones that we might want to achieve, but they can look very different depending on the person. So just having that conversation consistently over and over again to make sure that it's an important thing that everyone knows that should be discussed, essentially.
Wow. One of the things that's really powerful with that is that the stigma. Let's break that apart a couple of places there. So stigma is obviously a big one, and the stigma truly is still relevant today, even in your age group, though it is definitely more acceptable. But the mental health. When we discuss mental health, we're really talking about just our well-being. And that idea that if I have to seek out help, there must be something wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with the individual at all at any time, but there are a multitude of problems that we solve and go through on a daily basis that we all go through. It's a human condition. So you could almost technically state that all of us have something going on with us and wrong with us that we need to correct, because that's what the human condition does all day long. We solve problems. We just kind of go through this cycle throughout the entire day. These 60, 70,000 random bits of information that go through our head in a single day, that adds a lot of confusion in someone's life. And there's no question that having the ability and some clarity to be able to discuss that openly with an unbiased, unconditional empathy kind of approach, and that's what counseling does and therapy does. And Mike was mentioning his work as a fundamental source because of funding and insurance. But for folks who don't have that capacity, there are plenty of community resources for mental health that will offer that as a supplement and a support. You just need to sign up for that. So please do not limit your ability to seek help based on the fact that maybe I don't have insurance or my insurance wouldn't cover that. You have to ask first from your provider insurance, and if not, there are a plethora of community services that can help you with that. So, but going into the big picture with that is being able to have that discussion where you're just it's like letting the valve open and getting the steam off. And in many ways, true effective therapy really is about that. There's some interaction and engagement and reflection back and forth, but it's really the person who is just letting this go, letting it off your chest, getting your conscience clear. I had a bad day today. Everything just went sideways. I didn't know what to do, and I got lost, and I just got frustrated. And now I'm angry, and I'm, whatever that may look like. Now you're able to share that with somebody who can just reflective back and say, hey, you know what, I hear you. And it really, that sucks. You had a bad day. These things do happen to all of us, But also on the other end of that too, you share the opportunities to say, hey, I accomplished something I never thought I could do. And wow, this is just such a great feeling. And then you get the reinforcement part. So having the opportunity to talk to somebody professionally is a really powerful tool, but it doesn't always have to be professional. It could be a close person in your life that you feel confident with, that you can share. And as you start opening up your story with them, as long as you feel confident and comfortable with them, you'll start getting good feedback. So Mike, what were some of your takeaways with your first session? What did that look like? And what were some of your takeaways from that?
Yeah. Speaking to the kind of point you mentioned with talking about these challenges or something you're experiencing mental health wise with people close to you, I don't think it's something that I necessarily wasn't doing in some capacity, but there was always a part of me that felt that I couldn't fully discuss kind of how I was feeling. And that was probably due to maybe some of my own insecurities about speaking with it. So when I approached, mental health counseling this past year for the first time, my expectations obviously were very, all over the place in terms of what to expect. I really didn't know how I was going to, engage with it and be able to like really open up. But what I will say is, with my first experience doing it, it did feel like the first time I could finally like talk about things, in a more in-depth manner. And those insecurities, even though they were still there, felt like they weren't as powerful and kind of shielded in a way where I was able to talk about things and really again open up to this person, the counselor. And I think there might be something to that just for me personally, as it pertains to speaking with someone that you don't know, as opposed to speaking with someone close to you, which, in some ways makes sense and in other ways doesn't, because oftentimes you feel like that person closest to you should be able to support you. For me, it's my significant other, my parents, my close friends. But, oftentimes I think there is a barrier that needs to be removed there as well, just in terms of not feeling like, you're being judged, which, I wouldn't be being judged by my, close friends and family, but having that person that you've never met and have, has no background really into your history other than what you're telling them in the moment. I think for me was, therapeutic, so to speak. Obviously it is therapy. So, yeah, that experience was really, pleasant and just, eye opening for me to be able to finally open up in some way. And the expectation of it too, just for me, going forward with it as I still progress. I think it's going to be a journey with anything. You're gonna learn as you go with it and what you're able to speak about and the feedback that you're getting from that person. And don't feel like it's something that you should ever limit yourself to, not speak on things that you otherwise haven't. Like, try to be your truest, most authentic self in best way you can. And again, that's going to be a journey. It's not going to be something where you're able to open up immediately or even within the first year, because to be honest with you, even in my first 8 months doing this, there are still things where I'm a little reluctant to talk to the therapist with the therapist about. And so I think that's just going to be a journey as well for anyone that embarks in that.
Yeah, and that's the piece that's so spot on with that is it is a development of trust, because that's our key motivators for our lives, whether we are disclosing or keeping it secret, is what's that level of trust, and our own insecurities is really wherein lies that question you were mentioning before. I haven't been able to share just about everything, but as that, in the clinical field, we refer to that as the onion, where you peel away layers. And of course, there could be tears involved with that. But eventually, as you continue that journey, and I love that term, you get to the core. And then you're able to, once you get to that core, then and what the core means is that not so much a core issue, but the fact that now I can be fully and openly honest. And once I get to that point, it doesn't matter what's going on in my life. I can open it and share it, without any hesitation. And I know that my feedback is always going to be reinforcing. So, and Mike, and also one of the things and challenges in your group too, specifically, you mentioned that the housing, the career, the family, the children, getting married, all of those things really are big pieces at your age group. And I remember, because I was 30, one of the challenges too is you're also crossing a paradigm in your view of your life, because you went from that 20 something with your friends from school and your relationships that you had and your buddies and being able to do all these things, and then you get into a relationship, and now the relationship starts to grow and it becomes serious now, and so all of a sudden this paradigm starts to shift from that view of that life as that 20 something to now the responsible adult going into the 30 something. And that is truly a shift in your perspective. And it does happen in many ways through society, but I think it's also something innately within us too. I think it's part of the procreation aspects in us, biological clock, people can call it, whatever it may be. But that crossover starts to transition us, because now we're looking at our lives from a different lens. And that's the journey of life. And mental health is about that whole process, is understanding that throughout your journey that you're going to see the world through different lenses as you go through your journey. I had a life like Michael did as a child. You see the world a certain way. Then you're a teenager, you see it a certain way. When Mike's mom and my wife and I had Michael, when she got pregnant, that changed my view of the world completely. When he came into the world, it absolutely changed the world, my perspective, and all of these are stages of life that just are developmental that we all go through. Now, not everyone is going to have family members or even get married and have children, but you're still going through those transitions just by the process of, your age. So let me share a couple of things. What are some of the things that we deal with, with the 50 something end of it? So from the 50 something end of it, is it, are you accomplished? What have you done? What are the things? What is your, some of the existential questions that I have always thought about is like, what is your legacy and what does that actually mean? And for me, thinking about those things, through my life, well, what am I doing in my contribution? What is my purpose? I'm working with an individual who right now had struggled because he had retired and he did not know what his next journey was, his purpose. It was like, well, I'm retired. I guess there's nothing else to do. And he went back to work as part of his purpose. And I would have argued that would have been a benefit, but that's all he knew. And I said, I don't think you expanded your horizon enough to say, try to do some other interests. Throughout your life, there's skill sets that you had that were really good. Teach somebody that. Again, that can talk on both legacy and finding purpose and also community and giving back, because nothing is more powerful than giving back to the world your skills and experiences. For my own personal journey, getting to this point now where when I had realized all the challenges that people face being in this field for behavioral health and clinical aspects of therapy, both mostly in inpatient hospital settings, for many years, I've realized that these common problems that happen with both psychiatric, behavioral health, personal development, addictions, there's this whole correlation of all of these together. And it's kind of what instilled the idea of starting Tiger Resilience in the first place. So that kind of redefined my purpose, from what I was doing in my role, because I needed to make a change because I was feeling frustrated doing what I was doing just on a daily basis, because I did not feel it was making enough difference in people's lives and felt that there was more to give. And that's hence what I did with Tiger Resilience with Michael and I putting this together, is because my mental health was that I was feeling frustrated. I was feeling, stuck in the work world, and I needed to be able to pay something forward. So this is one of those solutions. I'm not saying go out and start a business, but that may be exactly what you need to do. At the end of the day, it's finding purpose in your life, again, for my generation, but also I think, Mike, you can talk about that for yourself as well, right? You have to define your purpose now, because you have a definitive role, both as somebody worth a career, you're working with a relationship, you're working with those next steps in a relationship with. So how do you define your purpose today? What are some of the things you do that helps you with your mental health with that?
Yeah, I think purpose is definitely a more intergenerational thing. I don't think that's limited to the 50 plus or baby boomer as you age. I think that's something that definitely starts to kind of seep into your mental framework, even at the ages of late 20s to 30, and how do you define kind of what purpose is for you, like as it applies to, you just mentioned, with the person you're working with. So for them, it was like their career and their work field, and the meaning and purpose it gave them to do that, and post retirement, how they go back to that. And I definitely ponder that all the time as a 30-year-old now, thinking about kind of what is my purpose in life, and how am I going to find things that provide meaning and fulfillment. Personally too, I do think that especially in this age group, with as I was mentioning, kind of some of the challenges with career development, I think that career piece is pivotal with where you find your purpose in the next 20 to 30 years, and something that you find career wise that's going to give you that. And I do think that myself personally, it's something I've certainly struggled with, and kind of finding where I want to be with that, as it applies to even just this podcast and our program. This is something that, when it comes to specifically physical health and coaching people in that manner, it's something that has certainly given me a lot of purpose and meaning. More so than maybe some of the stuff that I, engage with in my kind of career 9 to 5 day to day. And I do think that legitimately is something that, my age group, has really, come to terms with. And you see that in reported studies, and, as it pertains to, workplace happiness, which, as we mentioned, with the generational differences, I think the older generations oftentimes didn't want to talk about that. If they were unhappy with their career in life, it was something that you just kind of, put to the wayside, and you had to kind of just, muscle up and, get through life. And that's just what it is. That's just, that's life. You're going to have a career that might not give you a lot of meaning, and you find things externally that do, and then that's fine. But I do think that my age group specifically, and Gen Z, the younger age group, is starting to kind of realize that, if there is a career that they find, more meaning, purpose with, especially with the advent of, social media and online culture, it's something that they can maybe find, more meaningful tasks in, as opposed to, their career 9 to 5. And again, it's something I certainly think about all the time in my
Yeah.
own life. So yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that's, you know what, one of the things I'd like to highlight on that, and especially, and by the way, that also applies to any generation, even 50, 60, 70, I don't care how old you are, the idea of finding a purpose that you enjoy, a passion that you can really love doing, and making that your career, making that your lifestyle. And Mike, truthfully, the generations prior to me, the idea was you went to work, you made money, you took care of your family, you retired, and you sat on a couch and you had, a beer and some medication to help you, and generally you were dead in a short period of time because you lost the purpose. But also on top of that, that your whole life was just to build this foundation up, and then you got to the end of the life and saw, the end of that line, and said, well, what was the real reason? Did I really enjoy what I did for work? A lot of people I worked with hated their jobs, I mean, absolutely hated what they did, but it was financial, it was security, stability, so on. As Mike, as you pointed out, today's generation, in today's world, you have never had the opportunity. And again, I don't care how old you are, you've never had the opportunity that you have today to take the skills and knowledge and the passions that you have, and then turn that around into something that you can make a living from. And if you want to talk about expanding and improving mental health, nothing in the world can improve your mental health better than doing something you love on a daily basis, and of course, and then finding a way to even get paid for it, to be compensated for it, and to know that there's a need for it in the world. Because that Venn diagram of the three circles together, coming together, of, is there a need for it in the world? Can you be compensated for it? And do you love it and have a passion? And in that intersection is truly where you find your purpose. That's where you find happiness. And in my experience, through both working clinically and personally, that's exactly the truth. I love what I do. I work right now in an inpatient hospital psychiatric setting. During the daytime, I run my business here with Michael, and I absolutely love what I do. And somebody asked me, how many hours a day you work? I ask, well, how often do you breathe? I mean, you don't think about it. If it's not work, it's just, am I busy? Oh, yes, very much so. But if you love what you do and you find those passions, it isn't about watching a clock anymore, or, realizing that, hey, my gosh, I've been here for 10 hours today or 12 hours today, because it's the passion piece that keeps us motivated. So that's really big, Mike. And I think that your generation is definitely discovering that more so. But I really would encourage my generation to take a look at that, hence what we're doing here at Tiger Resilience. But there's a lot of people that are looking at that and saying, hey, you know what? My interest has been, golf. And I want to create a channel on golf, and I want to set it up and do some courses or whatever it may be, because I'm really good at that, and my passion is of nothing but golf my whole life. Well, guess what? Here's your opportunity to start your own golf program, right? Or whatever that may look like, in a sense too. So, Mike, using those skill sets, especially now that you have technology working for you and in your age groups, going forward, what are some strategies that you do to help compensate with some of the challenges that you have around these stressors, such as relationships, getting married, getting a house, getting ready for a family, or what does that look like for you going forward? Your career right now, what are some of the strategies that you use that helps you get through that on a daily basis for your mental health?
Yeah. I mean, kind of just speaking for myself personally and things that I've researched, about this topic. I think, first kind of emphasizing the importance of setting up, realistic goals and managing those expectations. So, I don't want to say that you should ever limit yourself, but have, kind of set goals in mind in terms of what you want. And as we've talked about, that's going to be very different for every single person. So, mentioning kind of the challenges again with my age group as it pertains to the house, the wife, kids or husband, significant other, whoever that is for you, these things that are life milestones, that doesn't have to be your goals and your expectations. That can be a very individual thing. And I think looking at that in that framework, as opposed to kind of comparing yourself to others and feeling like you're behind the ball or you need to meet those things when it might not even be something you desire, is a strategy that I think is super important for people to kind of emphasize. And then, just things in terms of, as we mentioned, with purpose and hobbies. So, finding a side purpose or side hustle that, isn't, maybe a part of your 9 to 5 as a 30-year-old, and hobbies that give you kind of meaning and purpose. I found historically too, for me, exercise has always been something for that and filling that role. But then as I found, mental health counseling, because historically, again, I used exercise as like my counseling, and it certainly has a lot of mental health benefits and cognitive benefits. I don't want to downplay the importance of physical activity for helping improve mental health, but I will say that it should never be considered a true resolution or answer to that. If you are seriously struggling, you absolutely should seek counseling and mental health help with that, from professionals that can really help guide you in that journey. And then just the kind of communication thing we've talked about, obviously, as I've mentioned with my counselor now, but still with your family and loved ones, and opening up about those things that you're dealing with in terms of mental health challenges, as best as you can. Again, it's not going to be something you're going to be maybe super open to discussing in a meaningful way, and because of insecurities or whatever it is. For myself, as I've spoken about, that's definitely something that has resonated with me. But just in any capacity that you can with your close loved ones and friends, and I think historically too, with young men specifically, as I can speak for myself and guys in my age group, that's something where when we kind of talk about mental health challenges, men have it seems like, real reluctance to want to speak on that, regardless of age group. That's something where oftentimes conversations can be very surface level and nothing beyond, just kind of like, sports talk or whatever the personal interests are that you might have with your friends. I think that's something that, as a stigma, really needs to be removed. And with myself, I try to do that with my friends in the most meaningful way I can. But of course, it's something that we all need to kind of consider as a strategy to help our mental health development, again, outside of counseling itself. So yeah, I mean, there's a plethora of things, but for me, those kind of strategies right now have been things that I've tried to implement in my own life, and I think can be a very helpful tips and tricks for people experiencing challenges at this age.
Sure. That's good stuff, man. The one of the things that you mentioned that's really a big issue too, and it really is a concern for all generations, is that the male opinion or the male presence or persona, that we have to be this, beating the chest and tough guy. And I have found, truthfully, that our strengths are not in our perceived, how we are pushing ourselves to be this big person, this macho or this male persona. Our strength is in our vulnerabilities. And I say that from both a personal and a professional perspective. And this ties in especially to my age group as well. That all these years, it's like, well, listen, I've done all these things. I've already been through all that. I'm I'm a big guy and a tough guy, and I've solved my own problems. And, but deep down inside, there's a lot of vulnerabilities, and you're not allowing that to be surfaced out in, whether it be professionally through counseling, or of course to people that you love and care for, because they'll always be there for you. At the end of the day, those are the people that matter. Generally, we are too worried about the rest of the world and the rest of the world's opinion of us. And that's what kind of holds us back from being open. And the truth is, who cares about what the rest of the world thinks? The people in your life are the ones that matter. And as being a true and authentic person to yourself, by being open and honest and vulnerable, you will find that incredible bond that will help you and encourage you to build your own mental health and your own wellness. Again, that's at any age group, but again, I'm speaking somewhat on my age group here right now. And I will share a quick story. I had a gentleman I worked with some years back, and it was in a group therapy session. And this guy was about 6'6", somewhere around there, a big guy. I mean, he was built for football, professional football, and he was struggling with some mental health and substance use challenges. And he was sitting in this group with, I believe it was about 10 or 11 participants in this group, and I'm facilitating it. And we're going around, and I don't really recall the topic, but I do recall what he did and how he opened up. And all of a sudden, he opened up and he just kind of poured out his heart. And literally, he had part of the group in tears, and he himself was crying about letting going some of the trauma that he had faced and dealt with in life and so on. And I remember when the group dispersed, and I went over to him and I said, I want to tell you something. You are without a doubt the single strongest person I have ever really met, and he looked at me with the mindset of like, well, because I'm a big guy. And I said, had nothing to do with your size at all. Had everything to do with your heart and what you were able to do. And the fact that you could open up in stranger group like that, and how powerful that was of a message, not just for yourself, but what you also did for them, because you just gave evidence to them that it is okay to be vulnerable and to have those failures in our lives or those challenges in our lives. We're all human beings, and that's truly what mental health is about. So Mike, I tell you what, this is a great topic. We are going to be continuing this show going forward. Next week, we're going to be discussing the physical aspects, the emotional aspects, as well as the spiritual aspects of health, our overall well-being. And those are the four constructs or the four domains of the human condition. And a lot of our programs are based off of the body, the mind, the heart, and the spirit, or the vision, discipline, passion, and conscience, which are the four properties to that. And a lot of our programs are designed around that. And I would like to also mention, we do have our beta course being opened up shortly, and the links will be in the description below if you'd like to sign up for it. And this is for our program, From Ashes to Action, the Tiger and Phoenix approach to overcoming adversity. And it really is a lot about what we're talking about here today, but in a lot more sequenced with actual strategies on how you do it, and the actual tool sets that are utilized with it. So if you'd like to learn about that and get on that list, this is for 50 participants. It will be free, and you'll have access to the entire course, as well as our Masterclass Academy that we'll be doing once a month. And you'll have access to that for 3 months. And that will be all part of that link. We're only doing 50 participants for this beta launch. And once that's done, we're locked off. So this is a very time sensitive option and opportunity for you again. And this will be for the full course of our resilience program, in addition to 3 months with our Academy monthly groups that we do that help strategize and use best practices together. So again, all that information will be below in the link. Also, if you found value in this video, please consider liking this and subscribing to our channel so that you can keep updated to all future videos going forward too. And liking this video does help pay this forward to the algorithm for individuals who are also maybe struggling with similar issues that you have, and it just helps spread that so that other people can benefit from this as well too. So again, my name, Bernie Tiger. I would like to thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule and joining our podcast here. Mike, any last words?
Yeah, I think you summed it up again beautifully. As we've talked about, it's, just having these discussions consistently is going to be super important for people. And as you join the Tiger Resilience community, having, the social network to support you in whatever endeavor or challenge you're going through is just so paramount. So I just want to say thank you again. If you're taking the time to listen to us discuss these things today, and things that vulnerabilities that we might not always want to open up to, and we hope to we see you on the next episode.
Yep. Thank you. And once again, for your busy life, taking this moment out of it, we're greatly appreciated. Hopefully you're watching through the video. But again, this will also be available on our audio podcast on tiger-resilience.com. And you can go directly to that site. And again, our newsletter and information on the website will be in the link below. If you'd like to sign up for our weekly newsletter, that we put a lot of juicy tidbits, such as the topics we're discussing here right now, every single week. So I wish you and all of yours nothing but the best today, and we'll look forward to speaking with you in the very near future.